السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. You are the exalted, O Allah. We have no knowledge except that which you have taught us. You are indeed the all-knowing, the all-wise. And there is no power or force except with you. You are the most powerful. My dear brothers and sisters, of course, I have to address also Dr. Akram, the moderator, Dr. Wahid, the resource person, all the deputy rectors and the deans, and alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful indeed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for it is by His grace and by His mercy that I'm able to be with you here this morning. And it's also, I hope and pray by His grace and mercy that I will be given the opportunity to see through this project at least for another year, if not more. But knowing that I'm approaching, well, this October I'll be 78. I do not know how much longer Allah is going to keep me here. And so I really feel very honored and also privileged that IUM is taking up this project, and when we're all gone, the project will still continue until we reach, until the university reaches 2080, inshallah. So it's a long-term project, but we are laying down the foundation stones. Now, I have half an hour, and I would like to use this to go over with you very quickly the ideological framework of Vision 2077, which will guide us in our future work on the respective preferred scenarios and also the narratives for each scenario. So what I've done in this ideological framework, first of all, I begin with, I have actually 8 parts. The first is implications of post-COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not going to spend time on that. I've given quotation from Antonio Guterres, and also about the Middle East, I have a quotation from Marwan Bishara, and then I also bring in the ideas or the concepts of the unthought, wildcats, black elephants, black swans, and black jellyfishes, just to borrow the well-known metaphors of scholars of future studies, particularly Ziauddin Sardar and Suhail Inayatullah. We have been in contact with Zia and his team, and recently we had a conversation with Dr. Suhail from Brisbane. I am using their 2 books, and very usefully when it comes to the micro aspects of our work, but when it comes to macro, I don't have to go to them because the macro aspects are covered by the Quran and the Sunnah. So in fact, I'm also using Zia's terminology here, post-normal times. He has, I think, I don't know whether he has invented that or not, but it has become part of the terminology in future studies. I'm also saying that there is the positive dimension of this pandemic, as a wake-up call or as an opportunity for Muslim countries in particular to reset the agenda for the future. So they are forced to reset rather than having to wait until 1 or 2 more decades of corruption and fraud and oppression, tyranny, what have you. So the COVID-19 gives us a to a better future, inshallah. I also mentioned that we are also moving forward towards Al-Falah. This is to connect with what our rector has been talking about, Sejahtera. And Sejahtera, from my point of view, can be, the equivalent of it is Al-Falah. So we should keep Al-Falah in mind as we move forward, and not to be deceived by the mata' al-hayat al-dunya, or the ghurur of the mata' al-hayat al-dunya. From there, I go to the vision, IIUM's Vision 2077, the background. I give the background here. Why? Basically, is we do not want to have a repeat of the last 42 years. I was there in 1979, waiting for, even before that, coming back from the States in 75, I was with UKM. We're looking forward to the arrival of the 15th century Hijrah. And we thought that would be, the beginning of an Islamic era, and that we would be decolonized at last, freed at last, emancipated at last. But to our misfortune, the last 42 years has been most dismal, disappointing, disgusting, very much disillusioned by our failures, our shortcomings, our follies, our mistakes, our sins, and our zulm and nafs, our injustice to our own selves. So we have the baggage of the past as part of the background, and then we have also the humiliating contemporary scenario of widespread moral corruption of Malay political leaders. This morning I sent you a picture of Mikkel, the German chancellor, coming out of the workshop, supermarket with her husband, and dressed in a very, very simple way. And someone remarked, "You have been wearing this dress for the last several days." And she said, "Well, I'm not here to be a model. I have a commitment to the people." And she did not take anything for phone and what have you, nothing from the treasury. This is out of this world. This woman must have come from Mars. And I said, this is really an icon of servant leadership that Muslim political leaders and national leaders have to follow. I feel really ashamed that we do not have anybody like him or like her in the Muslim world. And this is coming from Germany. May God keep her longer in her position and leave out all those tyrannical men, all those corrupt men. This is the corrupt species. So the uncorrupt species is the female species. Long live the female species. But not many female species here. We hope one day there will be a female leader of this university, inshallah. Okay, good. Yeah, 2 hands, eh? Okay, good. All right. Okay, then I gave 4 principal reasons why we decided to have it 2077. First reason, by 2076, 28th November, we will enter the 16th century. So I was about to say that I was waiting with euphoria for the 1979, coinciding with the French with the Iranian Revolution. So we thought, it's going to be our century, but you all know it became an American century post 9/11 until today. Although the American eagle has, lost much of its influence around the world, but you have a white racist president wanting to stay on in power, and which spells a disaster for the Muslim world and for Palestine in particular. The second reason is that our disillusionment with the 15th century Hijrah 42 years ago. We have another 58 Hijriya years to make a better future, inshallah. The third reason is that after the Iranian Revolution, we witnessed the destabilizing factors within the body politic of the Muslim world because of the war on terror, the unjustified, illegal, criminal invasion of Iraq, of Afghanistan, and also the manufacturing of lies about the situation. Yet this country could go on preaching the world the principles of democracy and transparency. How I wish there's more transparency in American foreign policies. Then we have, of course, the Arab Spring disaster. Looks like there is no spring, there's always winter in the Middle East. I wouldn't say summer, although it's much hotter than most summers. So here is what Bishara has to say, that there are going to be worse things in the future as far as the Middle East is concerned. But we in the, and the fourth reason, we believe in the ASEAN countries, we have a better future, inshallah. We do not have some of the major problems and issues besetting the Middle East, or the West Asian countries. But I think Southeast Asia, with the exception of extremist Buddhist radicalism in Myanmar, I guess we can cope with some of the, let's say, the hardcore Christian evangelism from Philippines, and maybe also from Sabah. We can cope with that, and maybe also the extremism of Hinduism from India. But this will have impact on the Malaysian geopolitical situation, and this will also impact on the future of the Muslim Ummah in Malaysia. All right, as far as Malaysia is concerned, we are realistically optimistic about the next 6 decades, but with fulfilling certain conditions. If we fail to fulfill those conditions, then it can be business as usual, just extending this miserable present. So we came up with this. But I said, if the Ummah can be religiously and politically united, economically strengthened, and led by the right kind of leaders. Okay, then I have the Quranic perspective of the future. This is the larger, macro dimension of Vision 2077. We get the principles, we get the vision, we get the preferred scenario from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we are His servants. Okay? If we go to the future studies, schools of thought, most of the people who go there, they belong to corporations, organizations, institutions, and so on. These are small social, political institutions, and therefore, of course, you can debate, argue, disagree with the preferred future, and so on, because these are human institutions, and you rely on the, let's say, the wisdom and the intellectual quotient, or the emotional quotient, or the adversity quotient, or the creativity quotient of the people within the organization. So you're basically free to do whatever you like as long as you agree to those ideas. But not in our case. we are talking about the Muslim Ummah. And the Ummah is also created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a certain purpose. And this vision, this ideological framework addresses that divine mandate, the divine decree, the divine injunctions. And of course, our idea of the future, unlike the future studies disciplines, actually the future goes beyond this world. I have yet to see in the literature that I read about future studies anything about the hereafter. So to them, basically we're talking about existence in this world. So future is the future of this cosmos. And beyond the cosmos, or above the cosmos, or the what is supra-natural is not addressed, or the ghaibiyat are not addressed. Things beyond the ken of human reason are not addressed. So we have the Quranic perspective of the future. I would just, the idea of, from the Quran we know the differences between taghut and reality and truth, between al-haq wal-batil, between al-khair wal-shar, between al-falah and al-khusran, between al-salah, al-islah and al-fasad. Also, we also know about the truth about kufr, the truth about shirk, nifaq, and who are the Hizbullah and who are the Hizb al-Shaytan. And then we also from the Quran we know that we are ibadullah. We are not we're not just academic staff of IIUM. That's our profession, but our natural identity, which is programmed into us in our DNA, is that we are ibadullah. As ibadullah, there is a creator, there is a master, there is Rabb al-Alameen, and therefore we have to take note of what Rabb al-Alameen intends of us and how he defines our present here, our purpose of existence here, to bear the amana, to become the khulafa, with the idea of istikhlaf, and also to have this attitude of shukr to the Almighty. All this talk about SDG, which is fine to get the world into a better place, has nothing to say about gratitude to the Almighty, because the Almighty is the dollar or America or some powerful conglomerates. That's the Almighty. Whereas the real Almighty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has never been acknowledged in the official literature of the SDG. And we cannot be oblivious to that, because we are ibadullah. Okay, then we have also the duty of da'wah, so that we can have at the end of the day a hadara salihah, a virtuous civilization, with the city-state of Al-Madinah as its original model of ethical and God-oriented public administration. We also know about the temporal nature of ad-dunya from the Quran. Then we also know that we have problems with our hawa, with our and also zan, taking the better part of our aql. And of course the al-akhirah is very important, but this dunya is a darul amal with bala and ibtila as part of it, and this pandemic is part of the ibtila from Allah. But at the end of the day, we hope for the good pleasure, ridwanullah, mardatillah, or ridallah. We are supposed to work for islah and tajdeed, and that's all. These are all Quranic terminologies, concepts. and worldview, so that we will achieve at the end of the day al-hasana fi dunya and al-hasana fil akhirah. We also know that we need to change, and Allah will not help us in changing if we do not help to change ourselves. So for us, the future, the ultimate future is what matters, and there is al-akhirah. And none of the corporations talk about al-akhirah. For them is, what's the bottom line? Can we make it better? Can we get out of this, from this red sheet to black sheet? That's what they're concerned about. For us, where are we going to land in the ultimate future? Al-Jannah, or is it Jahannam, or somewhere in between? Then I go to, let me see now, next one. Okay, necessity for planning the future of the Ummah. Why is it necessary to plan for the future and the ultimate future, not just this worldly future? Because we are talking about, we envision Hayah Tayyibah, we envision Al-Fawzul Azim, and the first, I have given here several reasons. The first one is that Allah has designated this community to be خير أمة أخرجت للناس. كنتم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. We should never forget this, because Allah makes it very clear that you are the best community, the best nation brought forth for mankind, because you enjoin that which is good, and that you prohibit that which is bad, evil, harmful, and so on. Amar ma'ruf, nahi munkar. And then another ayah, which actually incorporates the meaning of khairu ummah, is the ayah from Al-Baqarah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس ويكون الرسول عليكم شهيدا. Okay. I've taken this translation from Muhammad Asad. He uses the term, we have made you. In another translation, we have appointed you. So ja'ala could, of course, means basically made, but it's made to hold a position. So that's an appointment. So we have been appointed to be the ummatan wasata, literally the midmost nation, literally. But in the Arabic language, it stands for al-khayriyah, that which is the best, al-adl, al-tawazun, and or al-i'tidal, bain al-ifrat wa al-tafrit, basically that. But most people stop there. That's the problem. They stop at وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا and forget to go on to, because the ayah did not stop there. There's no comma in the Quran, but you can think of a comma there. The ayah is very long. It has to do with the changing of the qibla. But they forget لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. So you are appointed to be ummatan wasata for a certain purpose. And people forget about the purpose. The purpose is to become shuhada ala nas, to become witnesses for mankind. Oh my God. Another, okay, thank you very much. Thank you. 10 more minutes. Okay, good. So we have to, these two verses from the Quran provide us the idea of the preferred scenario. Okay, I'll move quickly now. I say that our planning for the preferred scenario of the Muslim Ummah by 277 has to be understood and crafted as a long-term preparation and development of the Muslim community, A, to fulfill the divinely endowed wasatiyah and best community, khair ummah characteristics as best as we can. We're not aiming for perfection, but try our best and Allah will judge us for that. And B, to carry out the civilizational role and responsibility of becoming just witnesses over mankind. In fact, justice is very important, and bearing in mind that if you look at the hadith about Ummah Wasat, when companions asked the Prophet, what do we mean by Ummah Wasat, Ya Rasulullah? And the Prophet gave a very short answer. Either he says Adl, or he says Adlan, or Adula, or Udula. Basically is justice, or people of justice, or just people, Adula. So Adlan. But Mufassirun also understand that the word Wasat also means that which is best. So some, I think Ibn Kathir or some others will put Al-Khiyar first, and then Al-Adl. But they're all interconnected, because you're talking about something in the middle. And something in the middle for the Arabs is something that is best, that is equidistant and therefore just, and that is also balanced, equally balanced, and that leads to idea of moderation, avoiding extremes of ifrat and tafrit. So just the word wasat has three interconnected, intertwined connotations and meanings, but there are other dimensions of wasatiyah which Shaykh al-Wasatiyah, Shaykh Tayyar Wasatiyah al-Qaradawi has mentioned in several of his books, and I use some of his books. Okay, so I referred to here, Qaradawi includes al-aman, al-quwwah, al-wahda, as also aspects of wasatiyah. Aman, peace, security; quwwah, strength, power, capability; and wahda, unity, solidarity. You can check this. And he elaborates on a tawazun, beautiful elaboration, and relates it to the current situation, especially of the Muslim movements. And he gave, I think, about 20 types of a tawazun, which I think we can benefit from, and the clusters can benefit if you are thinking of how the characteristics of wasatiyah, the implications of wasatiyah upon your narratives and your how to achieve your vision up to 2080, inshallah. The second reason, this is the idea of the manhaj of rahmatan lil alameen, which we need to adopt, of course, in our vision. I hope by that time, rahmatan lil alameen will be the dominant spirit, the dominant form, the dominant body of the Muslim ummah by 2080. We won't be around, except for those who are very young, they will be around. But I think our idea is by 2080, I think that the second, third generation would be there. And we need the second, third generation to train them from now, from the kindergarten, from the primary school, secondary school, and so on. And our university, inshallah, the way I conceive it, is to produce those new breed of leaders. One of the institutions to, if you use the word factory, because now university is a factory, so our factory should produce new leaders and not just generating income for the poor, almost bankrupt country like Malaysia. Okay, so the third reason is we have so many reminders. So we need to have better da'is. And the fourth reason is the challenge of kufr and shirk. And the fifth reason is the spread of Islamophobia, how it will impact on our country, inshallah, in the future. The sixth reason is the Muslim nations and societies are in dire need of internal moral spiritual reform, tazkiyah, islah, and also, why not thawra, but thaqafiyya, thawra tarbawiyya, inshallah, educational revolution or cultural revolution. And of course, thawra aqliya, intellectual revolution. The seventh reason is we need new breed of leaders. So to me, the key success factor is this new breed of leaders. The old breed of leaders, we are seeing some of them now, they have to go. They are staying beyond their limits and taking the country down the drain. So we hope, inshallah, we can get out of this chasm of corruption, hatred, barbarism, if I may use the word, barbaric behavior in the political culture of Malaysia today. The eighth reason is the university. Our university has to play its role. And I mentioned that here IIUM has shown its capability to become a leading Islamic institution in the world today to address the needs of ESD in Southeast Asia, and we have been awarded the first position in the Green Gown University International Competition for 2020. I never thought IIUM or any Islamic university would make it to the first place. I thought we would be, as usual, number 20, number 23, you know. But here we came out first. Never thought of that. So it's possible to get to the top in this area of environmental conscious university or sustainability conscious university. And since we are born in the name of Islam to bring about social change, it is not beyond us to lead the Malaysian Ummah to a better future in the by 2080, inshallah. Okay, the ninth reason is we believe in the promises of Allah. And here I say we not just believe, but we trust the promises and the reminders of Allah. And I mentioned here about 16 promises from the Quran, which Allah has, and there are of course many more promises made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran to those people with iman and taqwa, usually iman and taqwa, or iman, taqwa and amal saleh and ihsan. And the mu'minun in general, Allah is ma'al mu'minin, Allah is ma'al as-sabirin, ma'al muttaqin, Allah yuhibbul muttaqin, Allah yuhibbul muhsinin, Allah and so on and so forth. And we hope we are those people referred to in the Quran, and therefore we can expect nasrun min Allah and also assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is impossible. If you go by the experience of Badr, 5 more minutes, if you go by the experience of Badr, then that 313 would in no way be able to crush a well-trained, experienced army of 1,000. But with Allah's help, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى, the majority was vanquished. So in our thinking of the future, never forget Allah. But in the secular school of thought of futures, they will never tell you to think of Allah. Because they think once you talk about Allah, then you are not really working. The Islamic view is we must work to the best of our ability, tie the camel, and then what? And then you can trust in Allah. Okay, not to trust in Allah and just don't tie the camel. So we are tying the ummatic camel with all these resources we have, inshallah, not just our university, but others as well. And then we trust in Allah. So that's why I put it at the end in my presentation, that we believe, we strongly believe, not just believe, we strongly believe. Because there are so many things really not possible for us if we look at our resources and blah, blah, blah. But if we really have the faith, the commitment, the taqwa, the ihsan, and the tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what's the word in the Quran that my assistance is near in the Arabic. Qarib, huh? Qarib, the last word. No, not ba'id. So, anyway, when facing the army in Badr, the Muslims were terrified, and they say, "Oh Allah, when is your mata nasrullah? Ala inna nasrallahi qarib. Ala inna nasrallahi qarib." When is the assistance of God going to come? But with their faith and iman, Allah says, "Don't worry, it's coming." And true enough. Okay, so we have to think of that, be inspired by all that. Then I have vision is derived from the clear injunctions of the Quran. This is for you brothers and sisters. So we have Ummah Wasat, Khairu Ummah, and all that. Now, by the way, this will be made available to you this afternoon, inshallah, okay? So that this is the final ideological framework which is going to guide us, inshallah. Okay, then I in number 6, because I have 8 parts, number 6, input from future studies. So I mentioned here we learn from Zia, we learn from Suhail Inayatullah, and like for instance, trends, emerging issues, scenarios, extended present scenarios. This is what Suhail mentioned in his book, familiar future scenarios, unthought future scenarios, and so on. So this will help us to navigate our own preferred futures for the Muslim Ummah. And then I also use what Suhail has written here. There are 4 dimensions, and I have come up with 4 scenarios. The preferred, the disowned, the integrated, and the outlier. Okay, so I'm going to have our version of the preferred, the disowned, the integrated, and the outlier. So we want to focus on the preferred, but we have to keep in mind also the possibility of the disowned, the possibility of disintegrated, and the outlier. Okay, so this 6.1, 6.2 is my critique of, my objective critique of future studies literature as they exist today. Three critique. Okay, then, so our vision is the best khairu ummah and also ummatan wasat. Our mission is yad'una ila khair, and the method is rahmatan lil alameen. These are the macro dimensions. But when it comes to the filling in the details, then of course the respective clusters can use their own ijtihad and deliberation, rational deliberation based on certain data or without data to come up with the scenarios. Then I come to the 4 scenarios of the future Muslim Ummah. The first one is the disowned scenario, which is the least preferred scenario. Ini yang kita paling tidak suka. Yeah? The ifrat quality. Ifrat means, extravagance and all that. Because I'm taking the terminology of at-tawassut bain al-ifrat wa tafrid. This is the meaning of, one of the meaning of wasatiyya. So this is the ifrat quality of the Muslim future. This is the ummah of Malay Muslim exclusivism, fanaticism, and fundamentalism. We have that, group of people in Malaysia. But by 2080, they may be dominant. That's one possibility. And here I use a metaphor because the 2 schools of thought, they like to use metaphors as well. But don't have to, split hairs over the metaphor. Forget about the metaphor. It's just to make us remember. So it's just like giving a color. The first one is red. disown scenario, red color. Khalas. Don't quarrel why red, why not blue, and So the metaphor is a wounded tiger. This is, a wounded tiger is very aggressive and just wants to attack other animals. On the other side, you have the arrogant dragon, and then plus working together with the aggressive elephant. Aggressive elephant refers to the Hindu-oriented extremism of people of Indian ancestry, and the arrogant dragon refers to the radical racist Malaysians of Chinese origin, backed by communist China, which will become more and more powerful in the decades ahead. India too is also positioning itself in Asia and Southeast Asia, backed by America and Israel. So this is, now forget about the metaphor, just look at the content, and this is the minimum that I am writing, because it's difficult to imagine the future, but this is something that I could put on paper, but of course you can add, you can subtract, what have you. This is a scenario of a Malay Muslim Ummah dominated by fanatical and fundamentalist religious and political leadership. What a combination! What a lethal combination we have: religious extremism plus political extremism. There will be prolonged political interreligious conflict between Muslim extremists and the radical non-Muslims. And the rise of communist China, the rise of India, the coming together radical Muslim movements like ISIS, and also the one in the Philippines. What is it called? Abu Sayyaf, yeah, and others. They might get together just to get a quick ticket to heaven, because to them dying is a way to get to heaven quicker, even if they know they're going to lose. But it's a good way to die for them. Okay. So eventually, because of the Malay Muslim, the mainstream community comes under the dominance of Muslim fundamentalism, fanaticism, and militancy, blah, blah, blah. Then also the anti-Islamic elements of indigenous people, the Dayaks, the Dusun, the Kadazan, the Orang Ulu, the what have you, in Sabah and Sarawak, would also come together in a way also fanned by the Catholic extremists from the Philippines and also from Taiwan and Korea working together. The Protestant extremists plus the Hindu extremists from India. So what we have is a very politically unstable state of affairs, which demonstrates the utter failure of national integration dominating the national scene. The second scenario, this is not preferred, but more tolerable than the disowned scenario. The disowned we don't want. This one, okay lah, yeah. Also we don't like it, but not as bad. So I use the metaphor of the toothless laughing tiger. It's a tiger still, but without tooth and smiling away because, it has lost its courage and its identity. This is a Muslim Malaysian Ummah under the dominance and influence of multi-ethnic Muslim liberalism, not under non-Muslims, but under the opposite of fundamentalism is liberalism. So Muslim, non-Muslim, new Muslim, liberals get together because they know what to control. The media, for instance. For instance, now some of the liberal elements are, in fact, they have a good influence in the media, in Star or in NST, Malaysia Kini, and so on. So they can also galvanize those elements to become a force to reckon with. And the mainstream Muslims are split into, by that time, maybe 10 political parties. Now, alhamdulillah, we have only 6. By 2080, inshallah, we'll have 10 or 20 Malay political parties, each striving for power, not knowing that because you are split, you're not going to get power, but we are going to be defeated. So this is the scenario of a Malaysian Muslim Ummah, which is a post-normal community in which the liberal and secular-oriented elites, intellectuals, power holders, media leaders cooperate to suppress the influence of traditional Sunni orthodoxy backed by the sultans and the king. Okay, so the Sunni religious elites are being isolated, marginalized, because the liberal and secular-oriented Muslim groups have been able to control the media, ICT, sports, and entertainment industry. And they're also being financed by big corporations and also anti-Muslim forces in the West and also in the Orient. The third scenario, this is most unacceptable scenario, or what Zia calls the unthought scenario. This, I use the Arabic word, the Quranic term, mustad'afun. We become mustad'afun or mustad'afin. The Quran talks of al-mustakbirin and al-mustad'afin. And we are going to be mustad'afin. That is to say, is going to be very weak, very divided Malay society, dominated by the non-Muslim minorities who were able to unite and pool their resources. So, domination of non-Muslim minorities backed by Zionist Christian forces around the world, Christian evangelical movements in the US, and global LGBTQ movements. There is strong influence of communist China and Hinduism dominant India, secular Singapore, Catholic Philippines, as well as Indonesian Christian communities in Malaysian affairs. Maybe also by that time, the Shia community in Indonesia is going to be very big. Now, Shia has succeeded in having a strong political and religious educational foothold in Indonesia. They have been trying to enter Malaysia, so far not very successful, but who knows about the future. So they might also be working together because Sunnis to them are the worst enemies than the kuffar. As a result of Muslim disunity, ineptitude, wrong political strategies, we become a political minority, just like the Islamic groups in Indonesia. Muslims are 85% in Indonesia, but that 85% is politically a minority, whereas the secular Christian nationalists form 15%, but that 15% actually become a political majority. That kind of scenario could also happen in the Malaysian context. Okay, so there is prolonged instability. Okay, now I come to the preferred scenario. I keep it last because this is the sweetest. The preferred scenario. The scenario of Ummah Wasatiyah or Ummah Wasatiyah and Khairiyah, keeping in mind that Khair Ummatin is also part of the Ummah Wasatiyah, with the characteristics of justice, goodness, or excellence, balance, and also commanding that which is good and prohibiting that which is bad. This is the ummah of justice, excellence, goodness, and balance, together with several other dimensions of Islamic moderation, as described by Dr. Yusuf al-Qaradawi and in these two books of his, in several aspects of Muslim life, blah, blah, blah. And here the metaphor, because again, don't worry about metaphor, forget about it. You can have your own metaphor if you like. The just, good, balanced, and compassionate lion. A lion is powerful, just to distinguish between the tiger, supposed to be dominating all the animals, but it is a good lion. It's a just lion. It's not a hungry lion, so it is well-fed lion. balanced and, and compassionate also. So concern about other animals as well. It is possible, in the future, who knows? Because according to the stories about when the Imam Mahdi were to come and so on, then all these wild animals can be loving each other and not really fighting one another, eating one another. This is the scenario of the multi-ethnic, not Malay Muslim community, but multi-ethnic Muslim community, may be led by Chinese converts, may be led by Christian converts, may be led by Iban converts, may be led by Dayak converts, yeah? Orang asli converts, or Thai converts. In Kelantan, we have Thai community there, and they could also be embracing Islam in the future. So the Malay Muslim community would be pensioned off. Terima pension aja. And the other communities will be leading. It's possible. Already we can see how Abid Liu is showing the way of compassionate da'wah, going down to the masses, feeding the poor, embracing the LGBT people, seeking for them under the bridges of Kuala Lumpur, polluted roads and rivers. And that's a Chinese. We have also an Indian, a Hindu, a former Sikh. They're all leaders of Islamic da'wah. So don't think it's not possible for them to assume leadership in 6 decades from now. Because the Malay community, perhaps by that time, in this scenario, failed to reinvigorate and to revitalize, and therefore the leadership is taken away from them by the non-Malay Muslims. And I really look forward to that. I do believe, for instance, like if we have Singapore Malays and maybe Singapore Chinese embracing Islam, they could bring about positive changes maybe in the Malay community, in the Muslim community in Malaysia. And by that time, of course, with this scenario, the unity would be there. Yeah? The unity that has escaped us for the last 42 years and going even further from us would be there. And thanks to the efforts of da'wah and so on. And on this point of unity, in my original proposal, I would like to propose a consortium of Malaysian universities to work on Muslim unity. Already Majlis Da'wah Negara, and I'm a member of that, is working on unity. And I belong to one group in this Majlis Da'wah Negara. And even right now, yesterday, they were meeting heads of Muslim political parties in Malaysia, trying to get them to work together. This is being done by Majlis Da'wah Malaysia under the leadership of Professor Emeritus Dr. Mahmoud Zuhdi. Okay, so the new leaders, I will come to that new leaders. This is the key success factor is the new exemplary leadership. I think I don't have the time, but I say here the emergence of a new breed and new generation of multi-ethnic Malaysian, and here you have to have the right kind of educational background for this. I think you cannot have just one race in a school. You have to have many races in the school, in the Malaysian schools of the future, and from there you get the multiracial Muslim leadership, inshallah. The emergence of a new breed of multi-ethnic Malaysian Muslim leaders of high spiritual, moral, and intellectual integrity to bring about Islah, Tajdid, Tahwil. Tahwil is transformation in the fields of politics, economics, business, industry, professions, lower education, blah, blah, blah. Okay. All right. And now I describe in more detail now the attributes of these leaders, and there are about C, D, E, F, G, seven attributes of these leaders, and this is important. So I'm sorry, I'll just take a little bit more time, brother moderator. The first one, attributes of Islamic leaders. Number one, having professional knowledge and competency in areas of specialization with relevant and appropriate skills that the time and changing circumstances call for. In addition to, number one, a good understanding of and strong commitment to the Aqidah, Sharia, and Akhlaq of Islam, as well as the Maqasid al-Sharia. And number two, having knowledge of the history of the nation. You cannot have leaders who do not know the history of this nation, with a general understanding of the cultural, social, political, economic, and religious diversity problems of Malaysia. And B, these leaders possess the integrated personality and characteristics of mu'minun. So it is believers all the time, not just Muslims, not just nominal submitters of Islam, as highlighted in the Quran. And number one, they have high spiritual quotient. That's most important. And you look into the 7 intelligences in the secular literature, educational literature, you don't find spiritual quotient. Maybe some, the Christians would put spiritual quotient. For us, the spiritual quotient is the foundation as the most important quotient, based on the value of Iman, Ibadah, Amal Saleh, Taqwa, Khashyatullah, for the scholars, Ihsan, Hubbullah, Dhikrullah, together with high moral quotient, manifesting in good character, Husnul Khuluq, and enjoining the ma'ruf and prohibiting the munkar, coupled with other praiseworthy moral qualities or sifat mahmuda, using Al-Ghazali's terminology. And number 3, high emotional quotient, high social quotient, good creativity quotient, adversity quotient, and last but not least, intellectual quotient. But this is now the least. And the most important is the spiritual quotient. And this is integrated in the personality, in the qalb al-mu'minin, qalb of the believers. And the third attribute is that they possess and they practice the values of adl, justice, even to themselves, even against their own selves. Moral, spiritual excellence, khairiyah, ihsan, balance, tawazun, i'tidal, integrity, amana, istiqama, sidq, courage, shaja'a, humility, tawada, ikhlas, mas'uliyah to Allah, propagation of Islam and khair with wisdom and goodly exhortation, mau'idha hasana, and seeking the good pleasure of Allah as the ultimate goal, ibtigha or ittiba' ridwanillah. Most of the time the Quran uses ibtigha, but there is one that talks about ittiba' ridwanullah. Ibtigha, seeking the pleasure of Allah. Ittiba', following the pleasure of Allah, or pursuing the pleasure of Allah. In addition to the principle of ta'ah to the Prophet and the ulul amri from among the believers. And third attribute is strong ukhuwah islamiyah, transcending ethnic, linguistic, or geographical identities or interests. And fourth or fifth, readiness to strive and sacrifice time, money, and energy for furthering the cause of Allah, fi sabilillah, as exemplified by the early adherents of Islam and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, thereby placing maslaha amma, or public good, and ummatic interest above self-interest. In today's politics, is self-interest first, party interest, crony interest, my wife's interest, and so on. Then ability to establish, strengthen transnational or ummatic network or collaboration as dictated by Ukhuwah Islamiyah without diminishing the spirit and requirements of citizenship or even patriotism to Malaysia. If Malaysia by that time would be a good country, then of course it's worthwhile being patriotic. But if it goes to the dogs, why should we be patriotic to dog food? And then the readiness to act. This is relationship with the non-Muslims. And I make it longer than the others, because this is crucial for the future. That is, these leaders have the readiness to act, to interact, cooperate, or work together in peace and harmony under normal circumstances with non-Muslims. either as neighbors or colleagues or co-citizens or foreigners on the basis of karama insaniya, which is taught by Islam and the Prophet, respecting human dignity in spite of religious or ethnic differences. Observance of the values of tolerance, respect for the rights of non-Muslims to believe in and practice their respective religions, acceptance of inter-religious and intercultural diversities, having the attitude of empathy, compassion, and mercy to all creatures of Allah. And all these noble qualities are based upon the humanistic teachings of Islam, what scholars call insaniyatul Islam, and the compassion of Islam, or what scholars call rahmaniyatul Islam, and the excellent examples of the sunnah of interreligious communication and humanistic relationship established by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now I come to almost the second last, but this is the most important, implications for the 13 clusters. And I have 3-4 implications. Number one is we are going to divide this time frame into 2 phases. Yeah, the first phase is 3 decades. The second phase is another 3 decades. So 2020 to 2050. We pay more attention to that, and then the rest probably we will just describe in general, and then leave it to the future groups to work on that. But we have to deal. I think the clusters have to address past failures, at least up to, say, 79, the beginning of the 15th century, 42 years ago, the past failures in Malaysia. Don't talk about the world, just in Malaysia. The present realities, the pros and cons of the present realities. Then the emerging trends, the key drivers. What are the key drivers? To me, one of the key drivers is politics, economics, education. To me, these are the 3 key drivers. And then the obstacles. Of course, Suhail and Zia may use other terminologies, and you can look at the literature. I will leave it to Dr. Wahid to standardize the terminologies. All right? Standardize we cannot be using 13 different terminologies. We have to have standardized terminologies. And this is where, when we go through this workshop, and then when we meet again in the next few more meetings until we meet in December, everything will be finalized, inshallah, by December. Also, the unthought. If you read Zia, his unthought is really weird. And he uses the word weird. Now, weird is something that people use, under extraordinary circumstances. But he's using the word weird as a kind, describing a scenario that you thought would never happen, but it happened. So 6 decades from now, you do not know many things will happen. Maybe Sabah and Sarawak becomes part of Philippines, or Sabah, Sarawak. Maybe Sabah joins the new Indonesian, republic. We do not know. And maybe Brunei, being a small state, cannot stand on its own without oil by that time, will want to join Malaysia. And Singapore becomes communist because all the trade is gone, and so all kinds of things can happen. But I don't want to put all this, because then you think, apa dah jadi Prof Kamal ni, dah kereng dah ni. These are symptoms of Alzheimer. Okay, so I didn't want to show you my symptoms, right? Yeah? Okay, so, but according to, when we talked to Suhail the other day, he said, what you are doing is very good. I mean, it's very courageous. Very, he used a different word. I cannot remember. Audacious. This is very audacious of you to think of 2080. But you see, in this kind of situation, we are talking about religious perspective, using the normative approach rather than the free-willing approach, using a normative approach. Then he says there are certain non-negotiable things. Non-negotiable. Tak boleh dirunding. Kita harus terima itu. So to me, the preferred scenario and then the characteristics given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the goals that we all want to strive at must be based on the Quran and the Sunnah. These are non-negotiable. But things were not covered by the Quran and the Sunnah. Use your ijtihad and come to agreement as long as they do not undermine the thawabit, the established truths of the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, so, and I believe they are achievable. They're not utopian, they are achievable because Allah mandates us to do that. So Allah will not ask us to do something that He knows we are not going to achieve. So we believe we are going to achieve. And then, okay, I'm just saying that the 13 clusters should prepare the narratives, and in the next few months before December, based on the preferred scenario of the Wasatiyah Ummah and the Khairu Ummah together, as described in 6.4, and in line with the ideological framework of 2077. Each cluster now will have to figure out the implications of the preferred scenario, especially on the production of the new breed of inter-ethnic exemplary ummatic leaders discussed in 6.5 above, and B, write the suitable narratives for the preferred scenario in 2077 and focus mainly on the scenario phase 1, that is 2020, sorry, it should be 2050. 2050. After we come up with a template in the workshops of 9/11, September, 11 September. And then number 3, discuss the method of backcasting, because when we start with this, we have to use the backcasting method. We are using here Suhail Inayatullah's approach, not Zia's approach here, because Zia maybe doesn't prefer this causal layered approach, the CLA approach, and backcasting. But I think it's probably better. I don't know. We'll leave it to Wahid, and in consultation with Dr. Suhail in Brisbane, how to use the method of backcasting in the micro perspectives of our scenarios. And not to forget, decide on what and how to Islamicize. Takut-takut lupa habis. Islamicization, which includes the following things. Look at them. You never heard them. Like de-kufurization, de-munkarization, de-Kamalization, demolition, integration, reconstruction, adaptation, enculturation, implantation, indigenization, hybridization, harmonization, and transformation. Of course, desecularization, we heard this from Ismail Farouki, also from Said Naqib al-Attas. De-Westernization, we got this also from Said Naqib al-Attas. But de-Kufurization, I got this from Malik Badri. From Malik Badri, de-Kufurization. De-Munkarization, I got this morning after Fajr. So all this, you have to decide, because you're going to look at the existing practices, systems, theories, ideas, institutions, organizations, methods, techniques, habits, customs, conventions, laws, regulations, norms, ideologies, philosophies, worldviews, etc., with the data or without the data, in accordance with what the Arabic says, تغيير means change, social change. There must be social change. Tahsin, improvement. Ta'sil is finding the original, authentic Islamic basis of something. Islah, reform. Tajdid, renewal. Tahwil, transformation. And then al-amru bil ma'ruf, commanding that which is good and prohibiting that which is bad. Because that's why the word integration that is preferred by triple IT now, they don't use the word Islamization or Islamicization now, they use only integration. To me, integration is fine when you're talking about al-ma'ruf. You with al-ma'ruf. But when you have munkarat, haramat, as-sayyi'at, are you going to integrate that, or you're going to Islamicize, or you're going to come up with something new, you transform. So I do not quite agree that we stick to only one term called integration. In our university, we have Islamization, integration, and other things as well. But to me, Islamicization embraces all those aspects. After all, Islamicization is a process of making things in conformity with Islamic principles and values. Okay, now, okay, then I say that the Islamization, in the kulliyah now, the kulliyah, for the kulliyah, don't forget Islamicization involves two dimensions, knowledge as well as the self. Tazkatun nafs, تطهير القلب, تحسين الأخلاق. That is the soft part, the spiritual Islamicization. And then there is the intellectual Islamicization. Most of us focus only on the intellectual Islamicization. Finally, the Murabbi. Now, alhamdulillah, our sisters, I think there is now a group appointed, I think, by the rector to bring about this, or to revitalize the idea of lecturers as Murabbi. So the Murabbi, this is Tarbiyah Ruhiyya, has to come in, and we're producing leaders. So I think this is the last thing I'm going to say, is that we expect that all the kulliyas and the clusters to also think how the curriculum in the kulliyah is going to be amended, modified, reconstructed to produce the graduates of each kulliyah as leaders in Malaysia and leaders outside, to bring about that wasati ummah in 2077. And conclusion, I say here, the reform and transform multi-ethnic Malaysian ummah of the long-term future, we believe, shall be led by qalb salim, or sound-hearted Islamic leaders with ulul albab qualities. You know, you should check what is the meaning of ulul albab, because I think your new leaders should also have this quality of ulul albab in general. But if they are scholars, then they should have this khashyatullah. Innama yakhshallaha min ibadihi al-ulama. Not a string of degrees, but what is more important to Allah is khashyatullah. And so these ulul albab combine fikr and dhikr, and with all the strivings and sacrifices to bring about peaceful islah and tajdeed in the present world of enjoyment of deceptions, or yani ghurur mata' al-hayat dunya, they have their sights fixed to the ultimate end of al-falah in al-akhirah. In the end, this is the real end, Dr. Akram. We earnestly seek the help, the inayah, the barakat, and the ridwan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our humble and imperfect efforts, which we take up sincerely for His sake and for the sake of actualizing a falah sejahtera oriented Malaysian Islamic Ummah by the year 15,000 Hijriya. آمين. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.